Let's do that. Yeah, good morning. Yeah, sorry about that. All of our Spice FM listeners will be thinking they can't see us, and they'll be sat there thinking, what was all that about? The humming, the hawing, the lack of volume, the feedback, the lack of feedback, all of these things. You're listening to Ammar and
Jalf.
live on our weekly show. My hair's a bit got a bit of a curl to it this morning. Anyway.
Oh, very nice. And each week we'll bring you some views and news and one or two clues from the business world.
Asian Business Connections aims to connect, support, and promote Asian and wider communities.
We'll be talking shop quite literally and not just corner shops. Or they're looking to start a business, have an existing business, or you just want to talk business, we can help.
We can help. We can help. And we do help. And gosh, what a frantic week, Jeff.
Every week's frantic, Ammar.
No, it is. I get that. And I feel as if you're almost saying the same thing every time you see somebody.
Every Friday.
And they go, well, every time I say you, yeah, absolutely. But every time I see someone there, they're like, oh, how's things? And I'm going, oh my gosh, it's just crazy, crazy. But every single week seems to be like the same. You know, as in there doesn't seem to be any reprieve, so to speak. And I'm starting to give up some of my roles, my voluntary roles, because I'm just from a work point of view, I'm just that busy. But the challenge with time is you just fill it, Jack. So if you've got some time, you just put something in it, don't you? So it doesn't matter whether it's you're trying to do work and things like that. And actually, you know, the benefit of doing the level of voluntary work that I do is that I develop myself. I learn lots of interesting information, and I get to connect with a broad range of individuals. You know, so there's actual real benefit, both me personally, but then professionally in what I do, because whether it's I'm looking at innovation in the NHS, you know, through to helping businesses start through our accelerator programs, and I can take some of that learning and put it there, and I can take some of that learning and put it there. And I mean, actually, both of those roles I get paid for. But you know, as chair of the Institute of Directors, or chair of the Business Growth Board of the LEP, or chair of the Progression Forum, or you know, I just seem to have lots of chairs, is what I seem to have. But you know, and not enough books to put in them at times. And what I'm trying to do is stop spinning plates that then have not very much on them or have nothing on them. You know, that's an analogy. But yeah, it's the days certainly this week seem to have got longer, and that's a benchmark of how busy, you know, I've become. Where I'm still sat at a desk or a computer at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. You know, particularly when I'm quite disciplined in sort of turning computer off, not looking at it after sort of, well, regularly or on an evening, I'll try not to look at my computer during the week. I enjoy family time and kids and things like that. And because I start looking at a computer at 5 a.m. So, you know, it's I don't want to be sat there for longer than 12 hours, which I'm normally sat looking at a computer for.
It's and are you getting dry eyes, Mark, from that?
Yeah, so I went to the doctors and asked them for a prescription, and he told us where to go.
Yeah, the doctors don't prescribe dry eye drops.
MP, and
no matter how much taxes you pay, you're not going to get any dry eye drops from the doctors.
Well, no, my doctor said all right, no problem.
Really?
Just obviously yours.
Because your doctor's in Darasol and mine's in Elsick.
What? Yours is in nowhere? Anyway, they probably do a lot more in health tech. I think all doctors do an incredible job, to be honest. That's
They do. They
it's
absolutely do.
crazy. It's crazy. But sorry, in answer to your question, yes, I am, and I'm seeing a lot more people with it.
Mm,
And one of the challenges that undoubtedly we're going to get is younger people um, having eyesight problems
mm,
earlier on,
hmm
because when you're staring at a screen, you don't blink.
hmm Yeah. hmm
So there is those problems. How's your week? Who you had in this week?
Um,
Sigourney
not.
Weaver.
I think it's going to be we're not going to be able to top Mr. Ford anytime soon. But there are a lot of kind of the who's who of the city and beyond coming in. We're noticing there's a lot of people coming from out of town, Sunderland and things like that. So we have some names coming over the weekend as well. So yeah, it's been good to see hospitality coming back, Amar. But obviously, I think anything that anyone does, you should do it all with a pinch of salt in some ways, because you just can't think that we are there on the straight and narrow, because we're not. Um, and I think you've got to really be prepared. Your business plan must have that contingency that we've talked about in the past. I think enjoy the moments, and enjoy this phase and make the most of it. Continue to be safe and follow all the rules and do your best. But we don't really, there's already that the Freedom Day, which is, I think it's not a very, for me, it's not a very nice word, because why should it be a Freedom Day? Whatever the word that they use, they've pushed that back by 4 weeks now. And what's to say that, it's going to be pushed back further? And what's to say that, they're going to have a middle ground? So we don't really know. So, but generally, I think hospitality and leisure, the city centre, is a lot livelier for sure over the last couple of weeks. I think some have said that it's not as busy as the first 2 weeks, where there was that kind of euphoria in some ways. But we're finding it's kind of still quite consistent. So,
No, which is great, and you're absolutely right. So the challenge that any business has, regardless of in and out of the sector, is very much um, the fact that the delays are happening and there
mm,
isn't any level of certainty.
mm,
We were attending an event on the 1st of July in Teesside, the Tees Tech Awards. We'd sponsored
mhm.
it. So the SME Centre of Excellence had sponsored the Tees Tech Awards, 1st of July. It's like, oh my gosh, this must be like the first black tie dinner that I was aware of. And um, and Harrison Ford and all of these people were coming along. So that's why I haven't invited you. And 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 it's a case of, well, it's not happening now.
Mm. And imagine the customer and the implications of that.
Well, it's as a sponsor, I sponsored a dinner.
Mm.
Yes, I've sponsored an award, and yes, it's a good thing, and yes, there's some promo, but the promo really happens on the night.
hmm Of course, the benefit is on the night, isn't it? So, and they're not exactly going to turn around and say, "Well, Are they going to say that there's your money back?" Possibly, you would probably have you probably have a clause of a cancellation clause or whatever you would want to call it.
Well, I mean, the challenge is force majeure. It's out of their control, isn't it? And it was interesting because yesterday on Radio another radio station, I'll not mention which one, the WOMAD Festival is a huge festival that takes place, and the
Okay.
person who organizes it was on the radio, and he was saying, look, our WOMAD festival is meant to take place on the 22nd of July or something like that. And he said, I'm sat here thinking, what should I do?
Mm-hmm.
He said, because it takes, if you imagine a festival, takes months of planning. You need staff, you need people, you need headliners, you need stages, you need all of these things. And what does he do? And every single supplier is naturally going to go, well, if you want my service, I want you to either pay for it or commit to pay for it, whether you use it or not.
Mm.
You know, as in, that's a matter of fact. If you were catering for 1,000 people tomorrow, you'd expect some payment for it. If tomorrow never came, you couldn't afford to do that, Jeff.
Of course not. The loss of business, the gearing up with suppliers, gearing up with staff, getting everything ready.
So
You know,
the ripple
there's
effect,
financial. Yeah, there's a financial impact and the consequences.
so it's, you know, it's a case of very much that level of uncertainty. So the most sensible thing to do would be for it to cancel it. But actually, would it? And if your business depends on it, and if you've planned for it, it's so challenging. What's particularly curious is that this Delta or Indian variant, it's interesting that they changed its name to protect protect Indians, understandably. But it's interesting that
Oh, so is the Delta variant and the Indian variant the same thing?
it's exactly the same thing. It was changed
That's
because
nice of them, isn't it? Changing it from Indian variant to the Delta variant.
Yeah, it is. Because naturally India had sort of said, look, we don't want to be associated with the next wave of COVID. You know, and equally China didn't want to be associated with China. Brazil didn't want to be Brazil, such like. So it is quite interesting, and you need to stop moving your camera. But yeah, it's you know, it's the whole thing with COVID now is quite challenging. I mean, the great thing about it though, Jaff, is, to be honest, we are where we are, and we haven't gone backwards. We may not have gone forwards, but we do need to acknowledge we haven't gone backwards, which lots of other countries have. You know, there's countries in 4th lockdowns and 5th lockdowns. Now that would be horrific. And even though scientists have turned around and suggested that that's what should happen, we should consider people and certainly particular areas closing down or closing back down, or not the way that they could or should. That's been slightly constrained. Interesting statistics though. So the G7, you know, the G7 summit, world leaders of the seven.
Was that the Goon Sevens, is it?
The goose. So the G7. The G7 summit. It's the finance comprises of finance ministers and central bank governors of 7 countries: Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America. Representatives of the European Union, including the EU Presidency and European Central Bank, as well as heads of international financial institutions, also regularly attend. And it was held in Cornwall, is where it was. and, and the spike in Cornwall has gone up quite significantly.
Well, that's because they didn't quarantine for 10 days. That's why.
Yeah.
How is that allowed? I don't get it.
It's anyway, it's crazy, isn't it? I just don't. It's just a very interesting position, is what it is. Your skin's looking particularly well, Jalf. Are you using anything special or in particular?
Well, I use so now, instead of just getting up in the morning, creaming your face, I do go through a regime where there's like
you get up in the morning and creaming your face.
No. So when you wash your face, you have to use a particular product, which then gets you ready for the next product, which is, so I've never used a facial serum. So I would normally get up.
What would you normally do?
Back in the day, you would get up, get some have a shower, get some soap, wash your face, get that the dark blue, navy blue Nivea, whack it on your face. Your face is really shiny and sticky. Get out of the house and go to school. I think I went to someone's house many years ago and I was amazed about how much Clinique they had in their bathroom, and each bottle was kind of £30 each. And I was like, oh my God, man, that's just really kind of inspirational. So I kind of thought that how can they afford so much kind of expensive product to look after themselves?
Yeah.
And it was your house. So
what?
And then,
who was that? Who came? Must have been rented out.
From that point, I guess we've just not been into cosmetics, which has got me on a kind of skin regime, and I think the face serum, I think it gives you that extra level of protection, and after that you put on a moisturizing cream. But I think we've moved away from some of the big names and we've looked at the actual ingredients that go in it, which are natural, and you avoid items which with all things, Ammar, it's a bit like food. If you don't know what you're buying, the big manufacturers, they like to not tell you stuff. So you're buying things which is actually the content of it is not that brilliant, and actually, they may not be beneficial for you in the long term and may actually be harmful. So it's kind of having that level of knowledge in buying products which are natural, organic, and good for you, and just make sure there's none of that nasty stuff that people may not know these big words that they have to describe some of the nasty things in bottles of cream or whatever it may be. So I guess going through that evolution and that journey, it probably helps a little. So I think the face serum and a good moisturizer which doesn't have any bad stuff in it is probably the way to go. And that doesn't mean the most expensive, which is what I used to think.
And actually, when you look at a bar of Clinique soap, it's £15.
Yeah,
what it is. And if you go to the supermarket and buy Imperial leather, do they even make Imperial leather?
No, I'm sure they do, man. If you think about it from a business point of view, I mean, it's going to have to be there till the end of time, right? Imperial leather, the red one, right? The red soap. Yeah, I mean, if you owned Imperial leather, you would make sure that it's there forever.
Yeah, you would.
As a brand.
You can even smell it now. I don't, as in, yeah. I can like sort of reminisce and smell it. Anyway, the point that you're making, Jalf, and it's fantastic to see Jusna, using her chemistry, using her awareness and understanding of organic products,
Healthy products. Yeah.
and being sort of quite innovative and creative. It's wonderful to see that, and I'm not just saying this. You can clearly see the positive impact on your skin. So the outside is shining beautifully, Jaff.
No, it's because I've got the sunlight on it as well.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying the outside of you is shining beautifully. And admittedly, I've followed a regime. It hasn't done me any favors whatsoever. I'm just a glutton for one of these, for all commercial products. It's like, oh my God, look at this! Oh, this is the best thing. I used to watch shopping channels and end up with like so much stuff and wonder where my six-pack has gone, or wonder why I don't look like Kevin Costner or whoever it was. I don't even know if he was that good looking, to be honest. But,
Kevin Costner's not. He was all right, Kevin Costner. The bodyguard dude.
Brad
Yeah.
Pitt. Is it George Clooney?
Yeah, Brad Pitt is who you want to look like.
Who?
You look closer to Brad Pitt than what you do to Kevin Costner. Definitely.
Yeah, so Brad Pitt, George Clooney, those type of characters. Anyway,
I think you're probably a bit more like Leonardo DiCaprio-esque, I think.
Yeah, certainly with the funny hairstyle that I just noticed as I jumped on the Zoom. I need to go and get my hair cut. Did I mention I went for a haircut for the first time 3 weeks ago?
I think you're telling us that you're going, Ammar. How was that experience?
So I had, well, a couple of things that triggered the experience. One was hairdressers had been open for quite some time. When did unlockdown happen? Was it 17th of May? Yeah, it was, because it was my wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they'd been open for a few weeks. I'd also had my second jab, so I waited a couple of weeks after my second jab, and then I went in for a haircut. It was Saturday, and I realised from an efficiency point of view how inefficient it is to have to go in and sit and wait. And whilst they've got X marquee spots and doors open and face masks and things like that, I did feel rather uncomfortable, if the truth be known. And I was just conscious of being sat in places or spaces where other people are sat, for extended periods, with their DNA. So the DNA is there as well. So you get all of the hair and hair follicles, and hair retains a lot of germs and various other factors. Anyway, it felt amazing having a haircut. As in, it was nice to be able to make sure that the back wasn't like that, having done it for myself to myself for quite some time. And every time I'd done it, it seemed to be getting higher and higher and higher on the back and sides, because I just depended what angle I was looking at. So no, it was good. It's good. But he did mention that their trading has dropped so significantly, and pre-COVID. Obviously, I do a lot of research on business and trends and things like that, and the rise of Amazon I follow quite significantly, and at the time it was highlighting how anything that was personally orientated could never be delivered, could never be automated or digitally transformed. So things like haircuts, things like manicures, things like massages, things like whatever it is, anything that a person needs, you can't replicate it. But what he did say, what he was saying was that traditionally people would get the haircut every couple of weeks. Now they're waiting longer because it's not that big of a deal. Or what they're doing is they're coming in to the barbers for one haircut, and then doing it themselves for the next one. So his trade had dropped by 30–40%.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
that's quite interesting.
Mm.
You know, but you know, anyway, it was great. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I did. But trying to find the time, because it was a 2 hour round trip. Yeah,
Really?
so I got there. Waited for half an hour. I was then, you know, I had to travel there. That was sort of 20 odd minutes. Waited for half an hour. Then he took his time on my hair. You know, so normally you'd expect it to take sort of 10 minutes or whatever it is. It took quite longer. And then sort of coming back. You know, so it was like an hour and a half, 2 hours is what it was. And I don't have that time during the week or even on a weekend. You know, there's always something to do. So I must admit, I've been desperate for another haircut all this week, and I just haven't had the time in my diary to be able to get across to him, and without there being certainty. So I'm minded to start going somewhere where you've got an appointment. Um,
Mm.
if the truth be known, because then I know I'm going to turn up at that time. There's an appointment, and I'm quite surprised that he doesn't do that.
Mm.
I mean,
Interesting.
yeah, yeah. I know you go to Tony and Guy and whatever else and you know, stuff like that, and you look beautiful. But yeah, it's crazy what's going on. What about football, Jaff? Have you been following much of the Euros?
To be honest, not much of it. It's just one of those things at the moment. I'm so busy. I mean, like I'm up to date with all the scores and all the results and stuff, but I haven't really had the chance to watch the games. But I think the games have been good. It was shocking what happened to Denmark's Christian Eriksen, where he just collapsed. He had a cardiac arrest whilst on the pitch. And the team doctor, it was an English referee who stopped the game immediately. They got the medical support within 10 seconds or something. They got the defibrillators out and they revived him and brought him back. He was surrounded by his teammate who kind of circled around him, obviously because they didn't want to see everything that the doctors was doing to him. So if you imagine, he was actually the Denmark's best players and very renowned player in the game. Christian Eriksen, he played for Tottenham, now currently plays for Inter Milan. And I think his career is over. But it's just a wake-up call, isn't it, Ammar? I mean, if someone as fit as Christian Eriksen having a cardiac arrest on a football field, obviously the game stopped because they knew that they revived him. The game continued and Denmark subsequently lost the game 1-0. I think that was the biggest story that came out of the Euros last week. And obviously there's been a number of amazing games in the last few days. And I think England and Scotland are playing, is it tonight? It's tonight, isn't it, Ammar?
Yeah, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock kickoff, yeah.
Yeah.
So
It'll be exciting.
yeah, of course.
I think it's the camaraderie, all of the activities and everything that comes with. It's literally for us. We're like less than an hour away from the there was a cartoon strip called The Jocks and the Geordies, is what there was within the Beano or the Dandy,
Okay.
which is quite telling because the Geordies went all the way up to Berwick, I believe, and the Jocks went from Berwick onwards in the olden days. Berwick was where I believe that England stopped and Scotland sort of started. And lots of people talk about Berwick being more Scottish than it is English. And there's an aspect of that. I haven't been up there. And it's a beautiful place, but it's closer to Scotland than it is to London type thing. But you could argue the same for us. You know, sometimes I wonder, would we, as in the northeast, be better in Scotland because we're closer to Edinburgh than we are to London.
No,
You know, and you know, anyway, I'm very proud of my English heritage.
we could
And
never
what's
be a
interesting?
part of Scotland, Ammar.
What?
We could never be a part of Scotland.
No, they'll never take us. Whatever that. What was that movie called?
We're definitely on the right side. We're definitely on the right side.
Yeah, but what was that Mel Gibson movie? Fantastic movie.
Oh,
Braveheart.
amazing. It
Braveheart.
was called what was it?
Braveheart.
Braveheart. Yeah, Braveheart.
Yeah. Incredible movie, wasn't it?
Hmm.
And it was a
And,
bit.
and
It's a bit like Gladiator.
yeah, of course, it was a phenomenal movie, and I think the William Wallace story in Parliament, it actually showed, doesn't it? There's a placard on the floor, and it shows the area, the actual place where he was. He was hung in the Houses of Parliament at some point, and I remember going to Parliament and seeing the placard on the floor. But yeah, he's done. He was a brave heart, and he did his thing for Scotland, and you know the Scots are very, very patriotic, and so they should be, and obviously the English are too. So tonight it's going to be very, very interesting in the Euros. And there's not many occasions. I think the last time was 1996 when the Gaza. It was in 1996 when Gaza scored that goal.
Yeah.
And that
They
only
were
seemed.
talking about it. They were 1996 Euros, Scotland versus England. Was it David Seaman saved an incredible goal, and then
Alan Shearer was flying in that tournament.
Then Paul Gascoigne scored.
We should have won that tournament. Do you remember that the Gascoigne miss against Germany, where he slid in and Shearer passed the ball, and I think it was Shearer that passed the ball, and he just missed it. And if it was the other way around, Paul Gascoigne said himself, if that was Alan Shearer instead of me, his instincts would have taken him to that ball and he would have scored.
When did he cry? When was Paul Gascoigne crying?
He was crying in the 1988 World Cup when he got sent off and he was going to miss the semi-final or the final or something like that.
Yeah, there he was crying.
Yeah.
So, I think phenomenal footballer, to be honest.
Paul Gascoigne. I mean, look, Alan Shearer is rightfully the footballing legend of the north of England. You know, the Premier League's highest score and everything else. But in terms of raw footballing talent, if Paul Gascoigne just didn't go to Tottenham and went to Manchester. I mean, went to Manchester United instead of more. It would have, his legacy would have been so different. And you know, I had the pleasure of.
Does he not say that?
I had the pleasure of sitting next to Sir John Hall at one of the ABC events, and I was asking him. I said, Sir John, is it true that Paul Gascoigne was in a car on the way to Manchester, and Terry Venables, the manager at Tottenham, rang him up? He said, like, Paul, look, you know you wanted those houses for your mum and your sister. Look, we're going to get them for you if you join for us. And apparently they turned the car on and said, okay, then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to kind of sign for Tottenham instead.
Yeah.
So that's the tale. That's it. That's what they say. That's what happened.
I'm relatively certain I've heard him say that.
Yeah.
You know, as in I've heard Gaza speak, I've heard various other people's sort of confirm that story and things like that. But he was on his way to Man U.
Yeah.
And you're right. You know, it was. I
Because
don't know whether it was as simple as turning the car that way, but
well, yeah, I think in a nutshell, I think more or less that's what happened. But if you imagine he went under the disciplinarian of Alex Ferguson, he would have just been a totally different.
Yeah,
it would have been a totally different situation. But anyway, it's what it is, and
it is what it is. Anyway, it's you know, great memories, great things, and for me, it's you know, I think it's we need to recognise and acknowledge, and I hope he's all right. If the truth be known. So coming back to city centre, Jaff, Newcastle city centre, what's going on? There's lots of Euro zones and things like that in regards to the football.
Yeah, I think so, to be honest. Yeah, there are people and there are Eurozones and you can have tables and this, that, and the other. I think obviously it feels as normal as it can feel. It's probably not full throttle in terms of how busy it is, Ammar, because the theaters and things like that, they're not fully up to speed. Cinemas, I don't think people are visiting the cinemas as much as what they used to do. So I think it's getting there. It's getting there. But it's still a long way to go. I think the Euros, it's not quite how it would be ordinarily, but there are people out and they do go. I haven't been myself, but I have had lots of people that have just been and they popped over for them. We know they're going to go over to the Eurozones following a quick early evening tea. So I think the city centre, they're trying to do these as much as they possibly can, I guess. But I know that Blacks of Phoenix has been a huge dip in the last couple of weeks.
Has there?
Yeah, in terms of footfall and stuff like that.
Sorry. Excuse me. I think I'm going to sneeze. The weather makes a big difference, though.
It does. It does. I mean, it's been nice weather, hasn't it, Ammar, the last couple of weeks? I think it's going to be raining from next week, though.
Yeah. I'm going down to Catterick on Saturday.
Okay.
With the army.
All right. Excellent.
And doing meeting lots of people and things like that. So that'll be quite interesting because they're doing a number of exercises and whatever else. So it is Armed Forces Day next Wednesday, and our armed forces. I know, Jaff, you've signed the Armed Forces Covenant for Dabawal and things like that. But if you think about it, Jaff, right, the armed forces, they're the ones who built the Nightingale hospitals, whether they were used or not, whether they were required or not, they leaned in. They're the ones who are deployed to keep our economies and localities open. So what they've done is very much helped and supported Jaff. So they've gone in mass testing, deployed the armed forces. They're still operating globally, still looking to defend. They work for us. And it's just really, really important for us to recognize that. So if anybody's interested in some of the opportunities that are on offer, so look, yeah, there's lots of people who are now thinking, am I in the right job? Am I in a job? Am I, I really want to develop myself. There's been a sort of 40% plus increase in people doing things for themselves, and there's an expectation that come on lockdown, there's going to be more people who want to go to things like festivals, who want to go to things like, there's almost this expectation that everybody's wanting to do things for themselves, learn new things, develop themselves, investing time in themselves. So personal and professional development is going to be really, really high, as well as, those local opportunities. And what relevance is that to do with the armed forces? Well, for a young person, where school education's education, if you're a young person, then the cadets offers a great opportunity to develop yourself and do something and learn leadership skills. When you're sort of 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and having been in the cadets myself, it's just amazing the skills that you get and they get taught. And actually all of my sort of discipline and OCD and all of those things comes about from being in that environment where it is routine, It does help to develop you. You do have that respect. Of course, as an Asian, naturally we have respect in abundance, because it sort of comes down within our culture, although that's starting to change, sadly, in our future generations a little bit. But the cadets are there. You can volunteer. You can volunteer to become an adult volunteer in cadets, so support young people, help them feel good. You can become a reservist, so you get all of the training that someone within the armed forces would get, and that's not just sort of being a soldier in the typical sense of warfare and guns and that, like, it's pretty much, if you think about it, our armed forces, there's jobs at every level. So Ben Banerjee is one of the foremost medical consultants at Sunderland Hospital. He's a deputy commander as a reservist in the armed forces, but he's also a surgeon. As in, so it doesn't matter what your job is, what type of things if you're a driver, if you're listening and you're a taxi driver, there's driving opportunities. They'll pay for your HGV licenses. They'll develop you. There's all of these opportunities. And just supporting the armed forces is a good thing, because the Northeast makes up the most number of people that we send to the army. And it's a great career. I mean, some of the people at the top, you can progress, you get paid well, there's pensions, there's support, there's all of those things for your whole family as well. Anyway, the reason why I mention all of this is because it's Armed Forces Day next Wednesday. There's an Armed Forces Covenant that we're supporting. So if any individual or business is interested in signing up to the Armed Forces, then let us know. Get in touch. Asian Business Connections. We'll have something there for you to explore.
Excellent.
So Armed Forces Covenant's happening. We've got the ABC Awards happening in October, Jeff, and you mentioned Sir John Hall. You mentioned significant events. We are hopeful that Rishi Sunak will be in attendance. Naturally, that is our hope. And we've regularly had some wonderful speakers and various ministers, from Syed Awasi, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, to lots of significant individuals attending. And this year's awards are all naturally even more poignant, because we want to recognize and appreciate and respect the effort of everyone in the Asian community. And we're on this campaign, Jaff, of whether you're in the leisure industries or whether, if you think about it, the Asian community, right, have been at the coalface of COVID, right? Whether it's doctors, nurses. So there's been more Black and Asian people die through COVID than any other comparable community. And in particular, sort of Pakistani and Bangladeshi within the Asian community have died than other Asian individuals. And Indian, obviously. But then if you think about deliveries, the taxis, if you think about food, restaurateurs, takeaway owners, if you think about shopkeepers, if you think about corner shop owners, if you think about, look, at every level, right, at every stage, at every phase, the Asian community has supported the whole community tirelessly, unreservedly, and at the biggest risk. So it is absolutely critical that we come together and celebrate the significant and sustained contribution of the Asian community from across the Northeast and Tees Valley.
Brilliant.
Is what we're doing.
Great. I mean, hopefully we're
It'll
going
go
to be
ahead.
all free. Hopefully, we're all going to be free in October, and then we can all go ahead according to the plans. Because these events, what make it is the numbers. Because it's not a easy event to put together. There's huge costs that are involved in time, effort, energy, and money, and it should be experienced and enjoyed by a full house of people. So hopefully, we'll be able to be in that zone at that time.
Oh no, undoubtedly, undoubtedly, and you know, the thing is I'd be rather upset, as I imagine everybody else would be, if by October we're finding ourselves in any difficult positions or situations. The thing is we, in fact, I had said end of last year that we're not going to come out of this for at least another year, and even then we're going to have to live with this forever. This is the way things are. We're going to have to, all of us are going to have to get vaccines. All of us are going to have to maintain higher levels of hygiene and distancing. All of us are going to have to maintain some level of isolation, insulation. And from an efficiency point of view, Jaff, meetings happening in this way, they're far more efficient.
Got the Zooms and everything.
Yeah. I mean, they don't take away from that face-to-face, meeting, seeing someone. But I think I mentioned to you, I sort of traveled around the region a couple of weeks back, leaving here, going to our headline sponsors for the ABC Awards, great annual savings, a great firm. He's doing an incredible job. He's got a foundation. He's built this place, got hundreds of people. It's amazing. And from there down to Teesside, Stockton, Middlesbrough, all of that. And I was in the car. I was traveling for about 6-7 hours, but I actually met people for about an hour and a half. So if I was meeting someone for an hour and a half, in this world, it would be an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So from a professional point of view, I'm not talking about leisure. Everybody needs to get into restaurants. Everybody needs to get into takeaways. Everybody needs to get into retail and support local. It's absolutely critical that happens. It's one of the most important things that we ensure that local people are getting into local places and spaces. The point that I'm making is professionally, from a professional point of view, how efficient is it for me to be traveling to places and spaces?
Of course.
When I can just I can just talk.
Yeah, that is a big drawback, I guess, and that's one benefit, as you say. I think in London, when I'm speaking to people in London that do business, I think they don't begrudge going in the underground every single day, 1.5 hours to the other side of town, and given the ability to work from home has made them a lot more efficient and made them a lot happier. And I think the balance is, though, some of these companies I've spoke to in London, they've done a couple of days where you have to do that because it's still important to go out there and socialize. And I guess, travel and things like that, it is a part of their experience in life. I guess it's not nice when you are stuck in traffic and things like that. But I think being socializing amongst others is still important, and it's probably finding a balance moving forward.
Yeah. No, I think, look, we deliver workshops. So this week we've delivered sort of 3 different workshops, and we're exceptionally good at the interaction and engaging digitally. As in, I'd say we're one of the best workshop deliverers, facilitators, certainly in the Northeast, for the work that we do. But it doesn't take away any of the traditional face-to-face, where you would be in a room, you could see people's actions, see people's reactions, you can measure the room. The ability to try and measure people's views and responses in this way is far more challenging. And the other thing that I must admit that I'm really uncomfortable with, but I see so much of it, is that everybody turns their cameras off now.
Mm-hmm.
So you come into a meeting, right? I facilitated a session earlier this week, and there was 19 people on the session.
Yeah.
Right? It was a workshop, and other than myself and one or two other people who had organised it, a couple of people from the organisation, other than one or two other people, everybody had turned the camera off.
On? Off?
Off.
Really? Is that because they were still in their pajamas?
Oh, no, everyone had the camera off, and I'm sat there thinking,
can I see your face?
Well, I just, how much more harder is it to gauge, or even, people will just turn the camera off, oh, I'll just do a bit of washing, or I'll just do a bit of something else, or I'll do whatever that is. Right? And then that's what people are doing, and I'm sat there thinking, so I insist on all of my workshops that people leave their cameras on. If I've got the courtesy and decency to sit here with my camera off, and I expect everyone else, you wouldn't come into a meeting and then say, all right, I'm going to put myself in a box, and you're like, hello, are you in that box? Are you in that box? That's the world we live in. Anyway, thanks for listening.
From discussions and chat to
Tuned into
Ammar
Ammar and
Spice FM 98.8
live on our
FM.
weekly radio show.
Excellence building ahead of international football's